Coming up on tonight's UAP News Show.
Consciousness, the final frontier. Are we living in a simulation or creating reality with our minds?
Submerged secrets, the CIA's secret operations, and the truth about USOs.
And locked out. Why are intelligence chiefs being kept in the dark on UFOs?
Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl, Allie. We are back at it again for another episode of UAP Society's weekly UAP and UFO News Show. I am stoked to get started, so without further ado, Justin, say hey.
Greetings, cosmic enthusiasts. It's Justin here, and let's dive right in.
Alrighty, up first. Consciousness, the final frontier. Are we living in a simulation or creating reality with our minds? Buckle up, because we're diving into one of the biggest mysteries of all, the nature of consciousness. Is your brain creating consciousness, or is consciousness the one in charge crafting your brain as we speak? From official CIA documents suggesting that consciousness is a ghostly being separate from our body, to EEG recordings from human-initiated contact experiences, and even psychic mediums whose brain scans are shocking scientists. This is where science meets the unknown. Oh, and we're also talking about NASA scientists who think we just could be, living in a computer simulation. No biggie. The possibilities are endless. The questions are mind-boggling, and today we're diving in with all the latest research and theories to explore what consciousness really is. Additionally, we've got first-hand expert advice from a Harvard neuroscientist as he joins us on the show for exclusive commentary.
A tweet from Vicky Verma says, "The shocking official CIA documents on human consciousness that says consciousness is not part of our body at all. It's stored in our brain, but not part of it. Wow. Our consciousness is its own being, a ghost version of us." And attached to this tweet is a CIA document worth considering. Let's check that out next.
Okay, so a letter from Wayne McDonnell to the U.S. Army Operational Group Commander. This subject line reads, "Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process," dated June 9th, 1983. It says, "You tasked me to provide an assessment of the Gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business. Initially, based on conversations with a physician who took the Gateway training with me, I had recourse to the biomedical models developed by Itzhak Bentov, I'm probably saying that wrong, forgive me, to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonably lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of brain hemispheric synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in frame of reference suited to objective assessment. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation so that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the Gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, that introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicate that at times these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerate movement into the Gateway experience." Niels Bohr, the renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, quote, "You are not thinking, you are merely being logical," end quote. The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left-brain linear thinking. So to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic, but a touch of right brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete comfortable grasp of the concepts involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. Paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference in the end, I found it necessary to return, at least briefly, to the question of the impact of the gateway experience on common belief assessments. I did so because although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such systems, I felt that it was necessary after having completed the analysis to point out the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the gateway experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. This study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and of the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make it a useful guide for other USAINSCOM personnel who are required to take the gateway training or work with gateway materials. And this was written by Wayne McConnell in 1983.
So if the CIA was talking about all of that stuff way back in 1983 when a certain somebody might have been born, what does that tell you? They were talking about transcendental meditation, leaving your body, out-of-body experiences. They were talking about how you have to understand quantum physics before you can even begin to approach understanding how this shit works. And I thought it was really important that he mentioned, like, this doesn't necessarily, like, negate anybody's beliefs, but like he in other words, like the notation of some people not believing it because it's going to go against their religion was thrown in there, and I really appreciated that part.
Yeah, me too. It's I wonder how much research they've been able to do in 40 years.
Yeah, right? I know. Right. I know. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, to think that they were legitimately studying this 40 years ago. What have they discovered since then that is being kept up in secrets?
I'd love to know.
Yeah, me too. A tweet from Conscious Contact Work says, video plus screen recording of EEG and SDR during HEISS event from August 1st, 2024. The ECHO project is taking a step towards transparency in OFO research by releasing raw data from our first successful human-initiated contact event, or HEISS/CE5 trial. This dataset includes EEG, heart rate, SDR, and video recordings from the contact efforts. While we're not claiming any significant findings, this open release of unanalyzed data from our initial trial aims to encourage objective research in the field. This is a small but important step in bringing more rigorous methods to HEISS/CE5 studies. We hope this data contributes to the ongoing exploration of consciousness and unexplained phenomena, and we look forward to improving our methods in future trials.
For how many times we've done CE5, we should have been hooked up to some brain scans and to some EEG and to some SDR, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is, but that's okay. All right, so let's take a look at that video real quick.
David, right there in front. Oh. Yeah, you see that? Those two flashes, and it's gone. Did you see that? You gotta come here and look, dude.
Okay, so before y'all come for me, I figured out that SDR probably stands for standard deviation rate, just based off of how it's used in some of the stuff I just looked up. I'm not sure, I'm not positive, but I think that's what it is. Anyways, all right, so while we don't know like who was involved in the ECHO project, we are familiar with an experiencer that has been very, very vocal about the things that him and his entire family have been through. In this next clip, Chris Bledsoe talks about being featured on Season 1, Episode 8 of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch with host Martin of podcast UFO live shows. Chris discusses what happened during his first encounter in 2007, how things have been documented over the years, and the scientific study of his uncanny ability to summon something unknown.
Folks in the government has seen it and experienced it with me. It changed their lives.
Well, I'll tell you, last time I had Dr. John or Colonel Alexander on my show and was talking to him, and he told me what happened while he was visiting you. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is something to be taken seriously, because he has a little bit of a skeptic side to him. And so, so I take it serious, and then you are going to get vindication after people watch this episode tonight of these things actually happening. And how I mean, it's kind of a strange thing. I mean, the question that first comes to mind is why and how is this happening, and why you? Why do you think you?
Well, honestly, I don't know, Martin. I can go back to 2007 when it first happened, when the big event on the river happened, and it was 4 hours of missing time. They never left. They followed me home, and it's been the same thing. I walk outside and I look up at the sky, and a lot of times here they come. I don't even have to say a word. They just come. They're waiting on me. That happened this week. Happens all the time. And then there's other times I can do what I do. And a lot of people ask, what do you do? Well, Jeffrey Kripal, I just say this little prayer, but I see the phenomenon as conscience-based, right? So how do you talk to it? Do you just talk to it, or do you? But I've developed a way of, Jeff says, telepathy through prayer. That's the way he says it. But either way, it's all-knowing. It hears everything we say, and it's just the way I communicate with it. But it hears me, and it comes, and it puts on a pretty good show in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people may hear you say that and say, "Oh, well, that's kind of baloney." But all they have to do is watch that episode, and they'll see that it's true. And they also hook you up, so they see your brain scan during these times. I won't get into any of the details, but that is part of it, and that is pretty astounding right there. Even the specialists that talk about it and all that.
Yeah.
So you got something going on.
Yeah. What happened there is. I just published a new book, which is actually it's UFO of God. It's the #1 bestseller on Amazon. But on the last chapter of that book, we talk about being at the Monroe Institute and doing those same brain scans and how they had difficulty with their machinery. It just didn't want to work on me. So when the History Channel came, that whole thing came up, and they decided to go with doing the experiment on the brain scan, and I think they got some pretty amazing results there.
They sure did.
So while we couldn't show you a clip of the actual episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, we do highly recommend looking it up and checking it out if you can, because it goes into the whole process of Chris, and the brain scan while he's outside and he's seeing orbs and he's experiencing contact. So they do all that, and I highly, highly recommend watching the full episode. Now we're going to show you screenshots because we couldn't show you the clip, but again, highly recommend watching the actual thing because there's a lot of data in there, a lot of good stuff, and a lot of nuances that I think that people would appreciate. So in addition to experiencers' brains, we have even more awesomeness to add to the mix. Psychic mediums have also been pondering what their brains are doing during their readings, and neuroscientists are just as curious. In true YouTube fashion, they blocked me from being able to show you the clips from TLC, E, and the History Channel, but don't worry, I've got the screenshots from those episodes so we can still consider the wisdom gained from these studies. All right, first one I want to mention to you guys is Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium. I went to see her live in Jacksonville, Florida, just fangirling for a second. I love this lady. Okay, so she had a brain scan done during a reading, and the doctors were literally shocked by the results. In this picture, Teresa sees the results of the brain scan she received while she was channeling spirit. Again, the link to that show is in the video description box, even though they wouldn't let me show it. So if you want to check out the full episode, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
These next pictures show Dr. Drew stepping into Hollywood medium Tyler Henry's world for the second time to evaluate Tyler's brain activity using an EEG test while he connects Steve-O to his late mother.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen Steve-O get emotional before, but that man got emotional during that reading because Tyler's when Steve-O's mom came through Tyler, he was on point with the things that he was saying, and Steve-O was like, yo man, I straight up came here to be a skeptic, but I'm trying so hard not to cry right now, bro. You really you did that. You did that.
And yeah, I mean, I'm the same way as Steve-O, it's hard for me to accept some of these ideas, but I think that they are real. I think it's true. There's definitely something here. There's definitely something to it for sure.
I agree. Totally agree.
Yep. Okay, now that we've shown you that, this next clip is from a presentation by Dr. Jeff Tarrant that explains some of the brainwave patterns measured while psychic Laura Lynn Jackson conducted a reading.
And thank God YouTube will let me play this one.
So here's Laura Lynn Jackson. I mentioned her earlier. You see kind of the same thing, right? Except she's got activity that increased across all the brain waves. You can see at the back of the head, delta, theta, alpha, beta. But what's interesting is that it kind of gets louder and louder and louder the faster it goes. So on this particular way of analyzing data, the white color in the back is the biggest. It's bigger than red, right, in this particular analysis system. So you can see the gamma, which is, gamma is the fastest brainwave that we look at, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. What's also interesting about Laura is you can see that activity is all leaning over to the right. See what I'm talking about? It's kind of hanging over into the right occipital lobe. The reason that that's relevant in this case is because Laura is unique in that when she describes how she does her work, she says, oh, well, when I'm doing a psychic reading, I see things in my left visual field. I see things over here. And when I'm doing a mediumship reading, I see things in my right visual field. It's like, that's different. I've never heard that from anybody. She's the only person that's told me that. But what's interesting about that is because the way visual processing works, the information goes in your eyeballs, crosses over, and goes to the opposite side of your brain. So guess what? She was doing a psychic reading, seeing information in her left visual field, and her right occipital lobe was what lit up. It's exactly consistent with what she said. Kind of cool. Again, it's not hardcore proof. It doesn't prove that this is real. It doesn't prove, but it's kind of cool, right? I mean, it's like clearly her visual processing system was kicking into gear. Now, the other thing that's interesting about Laura's reading is if you look at this high beta activity, look up in the frontal lobes. You see that blue activity on the right frontal? So blue means there's a decrease of activity. So while her visual processing is increasing, her frontal lobes are actually shutting down. So she's not thinking, she's not hyper-focusing. In fact, her attention is relaxing, but she's getting more visual information.
Okay, so did you notice the pattern? Both experiencers and psychics have unusual brain activity during contact with the phenomena. Isn't that wild? I just find that so interesting.
Yeah, me too.
The primary findings included an increase of activity in the occipital lobe, which is where visual processing occurs, especially in the gamma EEG band. At the same time, though, there was a notable decrease in the frontal beta activity, suggesting a relaxation effect. So basically, while these people are experiencing the phenomenon or communicating with spirit or seeing things, the part of the brain that lights up when you see things with your eyeballs decreases, and then like the dream-like state, like as if you're like in a daydream, like that activity increases. So it's like the opposite.
Like you're in a meditation.
Exactly. So
Right.
they're in like a waking meditation when they're connecting with, I'll just label it as the phenomenon. I just find that so freaking interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to just take a moment to look at all these brain scans really quickly. Now, while we're not neuroscientists ourselves, so I can't give you like a really good evaluation of what all these things mean. That's why we recommend you listen to or go and watch the TLC show with Teresa Caputo, the E show with Tyler Henry, and maybe even rewatch the one with Laura because that doctor did a little bit of explaining that I don't know how to do. But anyways, so we've got a scan from Bledsoe. So this is when Chris Bledsoe did his, we'll just call it a CE5 contact event on the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch show. And it shows that, you can see what they're seeing in the sky. You could see where Chris is with the UAP DAP behind him, the camera that's tracing the UAP in the sky. And you could see the brainwave activities with that helmet that he's wearing. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that Teresa, Tyler, and Laura are wearing what they call wet caps. The wet caps are the white ones with the little red ports, or sometimes they're red with white ports. But basically, in each of those ports, they squirt like a gel in between so that there's like a better contact between the cap and the skull. But the brain scanning helmet or hat, whatever you want to call it, that Chris Bledsoe is wearing is dry. So it doesn't have the same look, but it does have the same function and does the same kind of readings. So this is Chris Bledsoe's. Up next is Laura Jackson's scan, and thankfully we were able to play you that video, so you did get to hear a pretty good explanation of what these things mean. So love that for us, because I don't know how to explain it, like I said. Here's Teresa Caputo's scan, and again on that TLC show, the neuros doctor that they were working with again said the same thing, that when Teresa is connecting to spirit, her visual stuff goes down and her daydream activity, meditation, that type of thing, the Zen, go in the flow, that kind of thing, goes up. And then last but not least, we have Tyler Henry's scan, which again, go watch the Dr. Drew Steve-O thing on E, links in the video description box below. Same thing. Decrease one area, increase in another, lots of red on the scans, very highly unusual readings.
It's pretty amazing that we can, in real time, look at somebody's brainwave activity, you know,
right?
And to be able to monitor and study this is amazing to me.
Same, I totally agree with that, yeah.
I definitely think that there needs to be more research done into this consciousness topic, for sure. You know, to me, this is also one of the greatest questions that we can ask is, you know, what is consciousness?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, are we living in a simulation, or, you know, is it something else? I don't know.
Well, since you mentioned that word, we have an excerpt from an article called "This NASA Scientist Believes Our Existence is Just a Simulation. Our Consciousness Could Be Simulated by a Computer." And that article says, according to Rich, the principles of quantum mechanics support this simulation hypothesis. Is that reminiscent to the CIA document we read you, or what? All right, keep that in mind. Particles do not have a specific state if they are not visible. In other words, we see what we expect to see, and this happens when we look at it. The essence of Rich's theory is that a programmer from the future designed our reality to simulate the course of what the programmer considers to be ancient history, for whatever reason, maybe because he's bored. Wouldn't that be some shit? We're just here to entertain somebody because they're bored.
Right.
Lord Jesus. Okay. He continues, there is much evidence that indicates that our reality is not as real as it seems to some of us. This may be the result of computer simulations that we are all in. Of course, the main question to be asked in such a situation is, who created this simulation? Among the possible solutions is God or some advanced alien civilization. And that is from, again, a NASA scientist. A NASA scientist is saying this.
So, are we living in a simulation? Does the brain create consciousness? Or does consciousness create the brain? To help answer that question, we have something extra special to show you.
Super special to show you.
Yes.
All right, UAP Society, I have something very, very special lined up for you guys right now. We were just doing an interview over on my channel, and I had to bring it to the new show. So let me just introduce everybody really, really quickly. I'm Allie. This is Justin. You know him. We got Leslie, our co-host, and also mod on the UAP Society server. And we have Daniel Branco here, author of the new book, Spirituality, which is why we were interviewing him over on my channel. But I wanted to bring the conversation over to UAP. So for our audience, we are here with Daniel Branco, a neurologist turned neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and author. But that's not all. He's also an astrophotographer, pilot, and explorer. Born in Brazil, Daniel's journey is one of science, spirituality, and self-discovery. After studying the brain as a neurologist and postdoctoral neuroscientist at Harvard, where he helped map the brain for epilepsy and tumor surgeries, Daniel realized there's more to consciousness than meets the eye. Now he's blending the rational with the spiritual to explore life's biggest mysteries. And we're thrilled to talk about his book, which ultimately answers the question, does the brain create consciousness, or does consciousness create the brain? And you guys know I'm all about consciousness, so it shouldn't be a surprise that I brought him over here real quick. So Daniel, if you want to say hi to our audience really quickly.
Hi, audience. As Ali mentioned, I'm Daniel. I've been a neurologist, a neuroscientist, but I've been living for 20 years as a civilian outside of academia, working with biotech, not as a scientist actually, but as a business person in biotech. And but consciousness is not related to any of that. Well, consciousness is the reason why in the first place I became a physician and a neurologist and neuroscientist. But it came from my spiritual journey, which I'm happy to discuss.
Amazing. And go ahead. Did you want to say something? You
Yeah.
guys want to say hi real quick?
I'm sorry.
I'm so excited. I'm like talking about it. I'll shut up.
Well, I was just going to say that we don't want to redo the whole interview here. So anybody that's watching and is interested, please go check out the full interview over on her channel, Hello Allie.
Yes, I was going to say that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. But we do have a question that Pavel, everybody knows him from Psychoactivo podcast. Pavel would like us to ask you a question.
Yes. So again, shout out to Pavel. And the question is, he wants to know if you're familiar with Dr. Jacobo Grinberg's life work. Are you familiar with Dr. Grinberg?
I've heard of him, but I'm not familiar with the work. Can you
I'll tell you. Yes. So he was a Mexican scientist, neuropsychologist, and psychologist. He studied Mexican shamanism, Eastern disciplines, meditation.
He disappeared.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. On December 8th, 1994, this man just up and vanished off the face of the earth, and nobody knows where he's been since. And it's super sus because he was studying consciousness. He was working with Jacques Vallée. So everybody's like wondering, like, what happened?
Who brought that up recently? Was it Jesse Michaels or?
It might have been just Pavel. I think Pavel's really hitting this thing really hard. Jesse Michaels might have. That man knows everybody and everything. So I don't know. It could have been him too.
No, I'm not familiar, but I was intrigued by the story I heard. Maybe it was at Psychoactivo. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember where I heard about that, but it's quite intriguing. And the reason I thought I was thinking of Jesse was that there is like a series of scientists who have disappeared in weird ways when it comes to 0-point energy, like anti-gravity studies and things like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think is happening? Why do you think, what do you think's happened to them? Are they being zipped into another dimension to go work on some reverse engineered craft or something? Like, my brain can go to all these different places. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like conspiracies, but it's quite impossible to not embrace a theory like that based on everything we're seeing, right? So there's much more behind the scenes than we can make sense of based on the information we have, which is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you know, like there is a thing in medicine called predictive value of a test. So let's say you have sensitivity, specificity as like parameters of a given lab, a test that tells you what is the probability of that being right, being true, right? And there is the concept of predictive value, which goes as, let's say you have a positive test for hepatitis, and there is a probability that that test is false, the test is positive. So that's a probability for that to be a true positive or a false positive.
Okay.
But then the predictive value changes if you learn that that person who had a positive test had just got a transfusion, which is one of the ways you can catch hepatitis, right? So because you have more information now, the likelihood of that positive test being really positive is bigger. That's the idea behind predictive value. And the reason I'm saying that is, okay, there is apparently, we have every reason to believe that there is crash retrieval programs, right?
Right.
Meaning there are UAPs and there are biologics, as David Grush has said, right? That's amazing enough, but let's assume that's like kind of a positive test. So we have a result, we send that to the lab, and then we got the answer from the lab. Yeah, those things exist. So there are crash retrievals, there are biologics, and that's the positive test result we got back. There is a probability of that being a true positive and a false positive. Okay. But now there is the other question, which is the far-fetched ideas that, oh, we already dominate the technology. We already are able to, like, going to Mars. We are, like there are like I don't follow those very closely, but there are programs of people who have been sent to Mars to wars. There's like you hear the craziest stories, right? The thing is, if biologics and UAPs are real, the predictive value or the probability of those other stories being positive as well increases dramatically. Because what is the great barrier? The current paradigm is we are alone in the universe, right? People they agree that, well, the universe is big enough for life to have happen elsewhere, but they are too far, and we cannot travel faster than the speed of light because our super science, in this century, has told us that that's impossible, and we always think that we are at the top of the knowledge, right? Like it's never going to expand. So and people we live in this paradigm that we are alone, right? Now you only need one black swan to know that there are black swans, right?
Right.
That's all it takes. So now all of a sudden that we have objects and biologics not from this world, or maybe from this world, but from an entirely different nature than we used to accept, then what is actually the distance from accepting this reality to accepting all of those other stories?
Right.
It's actually quite short. The biggest distance is coming from our current paradigm to, okay, there are UFOs and there are aliens. So this is the big distance. Now, going from there to all of the rest is really like a short leap.
Mm-hmm.
So where are those scientists? Maybe they are related to all of that all of those stories that we hear about, and we are still not at the point we can have whistleblowers tell us about those. But eventually the time will come. Eventually we are really already in contact with these beings, and maybe the current whistleblowers don't even know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not so ingrained in all of the conspiracy or all of that real reality of what's going on there.
What would you say to the people that are 100% nuts and bolts and they think that all the spirituality stuff is a bunch of hogwash?
Oh, I'll tell them to watch the interview we just had in your channel.
Thank you.
Because that's where we were.
I love you for that.
That's where we were discussing is the brain creating consciousness, or is consciousness creating the brain? The brain being the nuts and bolts kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So is the machine creating consciousness, or is consciousness creating the machine? And then again, to just bring back from the conversation, every creation starts in consciousness. Everything that we ever created as humans started as an idea. So things, very reasonably, we can say that things are not coming from machines. Things are being created by intervention of consciousness. That's where ideas happen.
Inspiration.
They don't happen at the machine level. Yeah.
This is my happy dance. If I could ask you one more question for the UAP Society news show, I'm doing a segment on psychics that had brain mapping done while they were reading. And the brain scans show that while the psychics are reading, their visual the portion of the brain that measures how much they're seeing actually decreases, and their dreamlike state increases. So what knowledge or wisdom can you lend to brain mapping and the changes that occur while someone is either using telepathy, psychic readings, remote viewing, or channeling?
Yeah, and that goes in line with also with what Gary Nolan has been saying.
Love that you brought him up. Thank you.
Yeah, and all of the areas of the brain that are related to whatever. So that's my take. And I'll invite Gary to watch our interview in your channel as well.
Oh,
dude, if Gary Nolan watched my show, I would shit my pants.
Everything those scans show, everything is correlation, right? We cannot assume causation from those scans. So yeah, the scan is showing that certain areas of the brain activate or deactivate according to certain activity or certain brain state or whatever. But we see the correlation. But now, going from there to really knowing what the experience is in those psychics' minds or consciousnesses, it's really a leap. We cannot tell from the scan the experience they are experiencing.
Okay.
Which goes again to what we were discussing here. Like, I as a neuroscientist, I know that if I scratch something here on my skin, certain area in my sensory primary sensory area in my brain on the other side is going to light up. Like this is fMRI is going to show that.
Okay.
Meaning there is a correlation between the experience of feeling pain or feeling touch here to an activity there, right? But the correlation cannot give us any insight, or the scientific data cannot give us any insight on the nature of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I only know this is related to an experience of pain or touch because I feel it, and I'm able to report that. But if I was a machine, a brain that is incapable of reporting anything, and I was wondering, like, what is this activity related? What is the experience that is related to this activity? All I can tell is what is going on in 3D here. I can tell that the more the input, the signals that are going to the brain and what the brain is giving out, correlate to what we can measure in the brain. But the experience that is the conscious experience associated with that is outside of the reach of science.
So do you find value in them doing things like brain scans while a psychic is reading? Like, do you find any value? I know that it can't encompass the whole experience, what the person is actually experiencing, but
it is valuable because we have the first-hand experiencer tell us what they are going through. So they're like the experience is in a meditative state or whatever, it's remote viewing or whatever is happening, and then this much is happening in the brain. So we know that area of the brain is associated with the experience. But is it causing the experience? I think to say that the brain is causing the experience is a real, like a gigantic stretch.
Okay.
I don't think we have the means to say that. I think that's only an assumption that, as we discussed, is the assumption where science is based. Science is based on the assumption that consensus reality, third-person reality, is the fundamental reality.
Right.
Whereas I argue that first-person reality, conscious experience, could be more fundamental and could actually be creating third-person reality. Consciousness could be creating the whole universe. Yeah.
I love this idea.
That's not something science can prove or disprove. That's an assumption we have to make when we interpret the data and everything that we are living. Yeah. But I really recommend people to watch our interviews because those ideas are better.
Yes. And thank you so much for saying that. And thank you for lending so much of your time to us today to answer these really important questions. I mean, guys, you just heard it from a neuroscientist yourselves. I mean, I don't know what else I could do to bring this information to you, but I hope that it landed well. Daniel, I cannot thank you enough. Talking to that man was a straight up privilege, dude. right?
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation for sure.
Right.
He's very smart. I mean, he's a literal neurologist, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, I just feel absolutely humbled, and thank you, Daniel, for coming on the show again.
Yeah, shout out Daniel.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much.
Also, I planned on having the full interview of us talking with Daniel out this Thursday on my channel, which should be the 10th of October. However, we are about to get slammed by Hurricane Milton and have to evacuate where we live because shit's about to get real. So I will not be able to edit that video and get it out this Thursday. Our computer is probably going to be sitting in a plastic bag in our car so it doesn't get damaged or wet. So anyways, this is all like a really long story of saying that like I planned on having Daniel's interview out on Thursday, you know, only like a few days after this one. However, due to us having to evacuate because of Hurricane Milton, it's going to probably be delayed until next Thursday. However, I promise you it will be out like literally ASAP.
And
like,
it's definitely worth the wait.
Oh my God,
sure.
yes. It's totally worth watching. This man is a wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even, like, I was flabbergasted sitting there listening to him. I'm like, oh my God, he's so smart. Oh my God, he's so smart. Like, I was just very impressed with the insight that he was bringing to this conversation. So yeah.
Right. So do you think consciousness is something separate from the body, like the CIA documents suggest? If so, where do you believe it comes from? How do you feel about the idea that psychic mediums like Teresa Caputo and Tyler Henry could be tapping into something beyond our physical world, as their brain scans show? What's your take on the concept that we could be living in a computer simulation, as proposed by some NASA scientists? What were your thoughts on what Dr. Daniel Branco brought to the table? Let us know what you think in the comment section below.
Up next, Submerged Secrets, the CIA's secret operations and the truth about USOs. Grab your swimming caps because we're about to dive into the deep end, literally. Get ready for a mind-blowing exploration of USOs, unidentified submerged objects. From government secrets to cutting-edge theories, Jeremy Corbell is telling us to pay close attention, and we're about to reveal why. Did you know there's a multi-agency operation hunting down non-human technology in the oceans? And wait until you hear about frequency wave theory, a concept that might explain how USOs manipulate space-time itself for underwater travel. Between leaks, tweets, and advanced propulsion theories, we're pulling back the curtain on a whole new level of UFO UAP phenomena. Forget flying saucers in the sky, these crafts are beneath the waves and they just might be bending reality as we know it. Get ready because USOs are making waves and it's time to dive in.
On X, Jeremy Corbell says, I would pay close attention to this clip about USOs, unidentified submerged objects, from our recent episode of Weaponized. You are going to be hearing a lot more about this soon. The information is right in front of you if you read between the lines, and soon enough, you won't need to read between the lines. With a wink face emoji.
I'm glad you read that part.
Yeah, okay.
In this next clip from Weaponized, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp conversed with Christopher Sharp, editor of the Liberation Times, as he shares details about his explosive reports looking into a multi-agency operation that pursues non-human technology in the world's ocean. Who is pulling the strings on USO secrecy? Additionally, I've got some highlights from the YouTube live chat that we'd like to share with you as well.
If UFO activity is more under the water than it is in the sky, it would make sense that there would be more sensitivity about UAP under the water, specifically because a lot of our greatest and most tight-hold assets are underwater assets, from recording devices, both audially and visually. That's why they always say in hearings, closed session, when that's brought up in congressional hearings. If you notice that, play the tape, baby, right? There was a closed session. But also because you are revealing some of the people that have allegedly dealt with these crash retrieval programs that people don't, it's not in pop culture yet. And I want you to and by the way, that is something that connects very much with me. I was told many, many years ago from some of the initial contacts I've had with high-ranking people that I should be looking at USOs. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've got a submarine. So this has always been a topic that seems to be really important. But additionally, Chris, you're exposing something.
From my understanding, Bobby Ray Inman used to be one of its directors. So did the former Senator John Warner as well. So yeah, it's something that not a lot of people talk about. Obviously, it's known. Its name is out there. It's not a classified name, but like the Office of Global Access, the name is not classified, but there's very, very little material online that you can find about it. There's no real news articles about it of note. So yeah, it's something they don't want to talk about so much, let's say.
I need me a weaponized pole.
Tell me a poll you are interested.
We could do a poll to see how many people think there are aliens living in our oceans. And then there it is. Do you think aliens are living in our oceans?
Done. At Hello Alley, the poll is live.
Woohoo! And then next up are the results that shows that 91% of the audience said yes, and only 8% said no. There were 291 total votes. And then I asked him, what do you think of the JSOC Lockheed Martin firefight over a UFO?
That's some deep shit. Hello Alley, where did you hear about that?
Ross Coulthard alluded to it and even said it happened more than once. This was a Reddit AMA with Ross. I cover it on my UAP news show tonight. And that was last week's episode. So yeah.
So just a little bit of a flex there,
Tiny bit! I like to throw those in every once in a while,
Yeah.
but the poll was cool. I mean, I like engaging the audience and what everybody's talking about. And I always like that Jeremy actually, interacts with people.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I
me
mean?
too. I love that.
I love that he does that. I think it's super cool. And
Right.
if Jeremy's ever watching this, shout out to you and George Knapp for doing the damn thing. Thank you so much for bringing us all these awesome weaponized. I love that you bring in the people that you bring in to talk about the stuff that you're talking about, and just props for everything.
Yeah. Great content, great information, and I look forward to watching Weaponized whenever they come out.
Me too.
So, yeah,
Go
thank
UFO.
you. Go UFO, yeah. We are always in the live chat when we can be. Sometimes I'm not always able to be there because I work 50 hours a week, but
yeah,
I'm there when I can be. But yeah.
Okay, so remember when Chris Sharp mentioned the OGA switching up their name? A tweet from UAP One says, so, per Matt Ford from the Good Trouble Show, the CIA Office of Global Access, whose job it is to recover crashed UFOs worldwide, was renamed in 2021 to
Really?
the Transitional Technology Mission Center. Let the sleuthing begin.
What?
No wonder why we don't have no information about the OGA. They just switch up their names and don't tell nobody. It's like they don't want nobody finding them. Don't use my government name.
Right.
Right.
How many times have we seen that before when a little bit of information gets out about some type of project, they just change the name of it.
Yep.
And put it over here in this other office, so it's like the office no longer exists. However, the work is still being done. It's still being continued, just in a slightly different location under a different name.
Right.
It's one of their tactics to get around.
Sure is. And additionally to that, Metamaterial posted this interesting idea. I wonder if the OGA was previously labeled as Group K. And in case you're like me and had no idea what Group K was,
Yeah, what?
I learned that Group K is one of those rumored agency groups that are part of the cover-up story. I don't know if that's from a specific document or what, but if you can school me on that, I invite it.
And lastly, I'd like to conclude the story with the following information to process. A tweet from Drew Ponder says, expanding on the concept of UFOs through the lens of frequency wave theory, delving deeper into the interaction between different waveforms, electromagnetic, mechanical, and quantum, and exploring the novel ways in which these objects might manipulate frequency domains for propulsion, communication, stealth, and environmental manipulation.
This tweet goes on to give a detailed explanation of the more complex aspects of frequency wave theory, including things like frequency resonance propulsion systems, frequency-based communication and information exchange, and practical integration of frequency wave theory with USO dynamics. However, the part that I'd like to highlight is as follows. Frequency-controlled dimensional manipulation. On an even more exotic level, USOs might employ dimensional frequency modulation to alter the dimensional properties of spacetime itself. By generating extremely high frequency waves at specific nodes, USOs could create temporary wormholes or folds in the water medium, allowing for near instantaneous transit between different underwater locations. In summary, integrating frequency wave theory into the concept of USOs reveals a potentially revolutionary approach to underwater propulsion, stealth, communication, and environmental manipulation, providing a framework that defies conventional technologies and principles. This theoretical model highlights the potential for wave-based technologies to enable unprecedented control over matter and energy, making USOs not just possible, but theoretically explainable within a new paradigm of frequency-based engineering.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
You know?
But you know what? Last week or the week before, at this point I can't remember, we talked about Tim Gallaudet coming to the UAP hearings and talking about USOs, so the conversation's unfolded.
So, yeah, it's like, if you think about it, everything is a frequency. Everything is a vibration, a wave, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to manipulate those waves, could allow you to do some pretty incredible things.
Yep.
So that aspect makes sense to me. The only thing that I'm having trouble with is I don't quite understand the mechanism to actually manipulate some of those frequencies to get the properties that they want. Meaning, if gravity is a wave, how do you manipulate gravity? How do you manipulate something's density? That's where my mind goes.
That is above my pay grade, but they are worthy questions to consider.
And part of me thinks that possibly some corporations, might have discovered some type of breakthrough in technology to be able to actually manipulate those types of things.
I mean, especially if they're reverse engineering craft, they might have just copycatted what they saw on the UFOs or something and did that. Something I love doing is quoting people. If you guys know me by now, in live chats on YouTube, I'm the quote queen. Hand me my crown now. So I want to quote Nikola Tesla, who says, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration."
That is a very good quote.
It is, right? Mm-hmm. I love them things. Wait, I feel like I have another one. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. He says, this is another Nikola Tesla quote. He says, "I am trying to awaken the energy contained in the air. These are the main sources of energy. What is considered as empty space is just a manifestation of matter that is not awakened." I'm pretty sure you can use air and water interchangeably within that quote. What do you think?
Well, I think what he's referring to is a type of 0-point energy.
Okay.
Meaning this one little spot here, it's not empty, right? Even if you were to go out into space in a vacuum,
okay.
And basically what he's saying is that there is energy stored within that space, and that is the concept behind 0-point energy. So
very cool.
I don't know. That's pretty interesting to me.
It is,
that
right?
You would say that, but yeah. So it's like they can extract energy just from a space, from a quantum vacuum, or so I've read.
Or so you've read.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked about a lot of things there. So with the Navy, CIA, and defense contractors involved in retrieving non-human technology, who do you think is actually pulling the strings on the secrecy surrounding USOs? What do you think about the claim that the CIA has renamed their crash recovery unit to the Transnational Technology Mission Center? Do you think it's a move to increase secrecy around USO retrievals? Jeremy Corbell teased that we'll be hearing a lot more about USOs soon. What are your predictions? Make sure to join the UAP Society Discord server and share your thoughts with the community. An invite link can be found in the video description box below. Make sure to tag us and say what's up when you get there.
And last but not least, locked out. Why are even intelligence chiefs being kept in the dark on UFOs? Hang on, UA peeps, because we're about to venture into an even deeper layer of government UFO secrecy. Just when we thought things couldn't get any more intense, a shocking revelation hits. Former Deputy Director of National Intelligence Cliff Sims and his team were barred from a high-level UFO briefing. And if that's not enough to raise some eyebrows, just a few months later, former Director of National Intelligence John Radcliffe let it slip that there are way more UFO sightings than the public knows about. But wait, it gets even more sketchy. PDD-NI, Stacy Dixon, is now overseeing Arrow, and if someone of her stature is also struggling to get fully briefed, what does that mean for the rest of us? Are top officials being kept in the dark on the most classified UFO data, which I think they are?
Okay.
Or is there something bigger at play here? It's time to connect the dots and uncover what's really going on behind these locked doors.
A tweet from Christopher Sharp says, "Of note, current PDDNI Stacey Dixon oversees Arrow. If she can't get a briefing like Cliff Sims, that's hugely troubling." Which was in a reply to a tweet from Disclosure Party that said, "Former Deputy Director of National Intelligence Cliff Sims and his team were barred from a UFO briefing." And just months later, his boss DNI John Ratcliffe said, "There are a lot more UFO sightings than have been made public." Let's take a look at that embedded clip now.
For those programs, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty telling. I mean...
All right, so we have a Director of National Intelligence, John Radcliffe, getting a briefing about the UAP topic. A briefing in which nobody else was allowed to be in there but him.
Right, everybody else said, "There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out."
And then, a few months after that, he reveals that there are a lot more sightings than what is being made public. And a lot more information. So yeah, I want to know who are the people that are briefing on the UFO topic. Who are the people that are in the program? Why is it such... Why is this issue so classified? Right? Like...
I have two ideas on why.
Oh, okay. Why?
The first one is because if they come out and speak the truth, that's gonna then reveal the decade upon decade upon decade upon decade worth of lies that they've told us from 1947 and even before that.
Yep.
So basically telling us the truth is gonna expose them for what they've done. My other theory, and it's like only based on like, you know, like ruling out the other ones, is that it's really something that fucking scary. Like, it's really something that, like, I don't know, is that bad. But I don't resonate with that one. It's not just me being like a love and light hippie. It's me thinking like, you know, when this secrecy stuff all started, it was during the war. So of course, like, the United States was in this mindset of like, oh, we are the whatever, and we have to defend ourselves, and there are enemies, and there are enemies. So they were in this like everybody except us is an enemy mindset. So it would make sense, like, at the time, why they would keep something that they don't even understand under wraps, because they had enough shit to deal with already.
Okay.
However, that doesn't give them permission to lie to generations worth of people since then. So it's like, you know, It's like a slippery slope of excuses. Say that 10 times fucking fast. Slippery slope of excuses.
So for me, I would say I lean more towards. Well, there's a couple possibilities that I think it could be.
Throw them in there. What do you think?
All right. So on one hand, I agree with you, and I hear what you're saying, and I can see that point. Coming. I can see that point.
Okay.
But
there it is.
All right. What if not only in admitting this topic is real, that they expose the decades worth of lies, but then they also get exposed for some of the people that have been unalived.
That too. Yeah. I mean,
secret.
That's all part of it. It's like they're going to expose themselves and everything they've said, everything they've done, everything that they've contributed to.
Right. You know, okay. I can see that as being plausible.
Okay, what else you got?
On the other hand, I can also see the argument for them not wanting to tell too many people, even high-level officials within our government, because they are scared that if enough people become aware of the true nature of this phenomenon, that is going to accelerate some type of existential crisis. Not just for the United States, but for humanity.
But how could us finding out the truth create some kind of existential crisis?
Okay, well, I mean, think about it like this. If we are actually living in a simulation, which has been proposed and which people have argued, just like you guys heard a little bit ago, what if they created a simulation, and in order to get a good result of whatever they're trying to discover or find out, the people within the simulation can't know that they're in a simulation, right? And if they discover that they're in a simulation, then that's going to
be the end of the simulation.
Well, that's going to mess up their results.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying?
Wow, your tinfoil hat is bigger than mine, bro.
I'm just saying, it's a possibility.
Okay, I mean,
I don't know. I've heard
everything's
that
a
argument,
possibility
right?
until you find out what the fucking truth is.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, I don't know for sure, but it's all very interesting. I think it definitely needs to be studied a lot more. I'm just saying maybe that could be a reason why they don't want to tell too many people.
Okay, but at the same time,
yeah, well.
I'm also thinking about how bold the United States is with making their moves. Like, I'm thinking of the James Fox documentary where he's talking about how, there was a crash. I can't remember which South American country it was in, but basically there was a UFO crash, and the United States government showed up unannounced, without permission. That's a big deal right there.
Brazil.
Is that where it was?
Yeah,
I thought it was like a separate thing from Brazil. But okay, all right. So anyways, basically, like, that's a big deal all in itself, that they showed up without telling anybody that they were coming, first of all, and second of all, they didn't have the permission to be there. Okay, so that takes a lot of kahunas to do that all in itself. So if they can just show up, and by they, I mean the OGA, or the transnational whatever we just said a few minutes ago, can just show up, claim the spot, all this is mine, wrap it up, toss it in the plane, take off, fly back to America, and then act like none of that happened.
Yeah.
How do they act so boldly, but then act like nothing happened? Like, it's just fucking wild, dude. I don't know. This whole thing is crazy.
Isn't it?
It really is. I don't know. I mean, you know me and my murder body brain. I could tie 10 more things into this, but I'll keep it
now,
simple.
Just to clarify, I'm not 100% sold on that hypothesis that I just said a minute ago.
No, but you're allowed to throw them out there for
they're
people
just,
to,
they're just thought experiments.
mentally
They're
munch
just
on
ideas,
and see where
right?
it takes them.
We want to know what you guys think also.
Yeah,
sure. What do you think is happening? What do you think about what I just said? Is consciousness fundamental to reality? That's to me that's one of the biggest questions that we can ask, along with, are we alone in the universe? Right?
Hey, yeah.
Those are the two biggest questions that I think we can ask, in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, if you would like to check out this tweet or read up on Cliff Sims, please make sure to check out the video description box below, where you can find that link along with all other sources featured in the show in the order that they appear.
And that concludes this week's UAP Society's UAP and UFO News Show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And while you're here, do us a favor and smash the like button, click subscribe, ring that notification bell, leave us a lovely comment down below, and share this video with your family and friends to help us spread the good word.
Let's raise the collective consciousness together in unity.
All right, much love.
Much love, peace, and
namaste.
And pray for us with this hurricane.
Yes.